Hi, I'm Gabby.
I'm Lisa.
And I'm Harika, and today we're going to show you how to graph sine,
Cosine,
and tangent.
Here's how to graph y equals sine x. First, start with drawing your axes and labeling your y-axis from 0 to whatever your amplitude is, and label your x-axis from 0 to 2 pi. Remember, the amplitude and frequency is 1. Sine x equals 0 at 0, pi, and 2 pi. Sine x equals 1 at pi over 2, and sine x equals negative 1 at 3 pi over 2.
This is the graph for y equals cosine x. Cosine, unlike sine, starts at the number on the y-axis and not at 0. In this case, that would be 1, because our amplitude is 1 and we don't have a phase shift or a d-value. If you remember back to the unit circle, you would know that at 180 degrees, cosine is negative 1, and at 90 degrees and 270 degrees, it is 0. And then at 2 pi, it is 1 again. When you put it all together, you get the cosine graph.
This is the equation for the graph of a sine function. A sine b times x minus c plus d. You might also find sine replaced with cosine or tangent because the same rules apply. The a in this equation stands for amplitude, and the amplitude is half the difference between the max and the minimum value. On this graph, the max is 2 and the minimum is negative 2. So therefore, the amplitude is equal to 2 minus negative 2 times 1/2, which equals 2. The next thing in the equation we're going to look at is b, and the b stands for frequency. The frequency is the number of times the function repeats itself in a given interval. In other words, the frequency is the number of pictures you see between 0 and 2 pi. In order to figure out how many pictures, you have to first determine where the first picture starts and ends. In this case, the first picture starts at 0 and ends at pi over 2. The second picture is from pi over 2 to pi, the third is from pi to 3 pi over 2, and the fourth is from 3 pi over 2 to 2 pi. So therefore, the frequency is 4. The c in the equation stands for phase shift, or the horizontal movement of the graph. Remember, if the phase shift is negative, you move to the left, and if it's positive, you move to the right. In this graph, you can see that all the points on the sine curve are shifted pi over 2 units to the left. So therefore, there is a phase shift of positive pi over 2, because remember, phase shifts to the left are always positive. The last component of the equation is d, which stands for vertical shift, or movement up or down.
To find the period of a graph, put 2 pi over b, which is the frequency.
These are some sine graphs with a different amplitude and frequency. This is a graph of 2 sine x. The amplitude is 2, so the highest point will be 2 and the lowest point is negative 2. Keep in mind that it has the same points that intersect the x-axis as sine x because it's the same period. Half sine x would be the same graph except the highest point is 1/2 and the lowest point is negative 1/2. This is a graph of sine half x. The amplitude is 1 and the frequency is half, so only half the graph will be seen from the period of 0 to 2 pi. Warning, warning! Do not get these two equations mixed up. Amplitude and frequency are two very different things. Yes, these two graphs are very different. Take a look at the red line and the black line. This is a graph of sine 2x. The amplitude is 1 and the frequency is 2, so 2 cycles will be seen in the period of 2 pi.
Let's graph the equation. Y equals 2 cosine 2x minus pi minus 4. Now, In this equation, you have an amplitude, a frequency, a horizontal shift, and a vertical shift. In this equation, your amplitude is 2, meaning you'll be 2 above your starting point and 2 below your starting point when you graph. In order to figure out what your frequency is and what your horizontal shift is, first you have to get the x value on its own. So what you want to do is divide by 2. By doing that, you're going to get your frequency, which is now 2, and your horizontal shift, which is now negative pi over 2. Vertical shift is very important. It tells you where to start your graph. In this case, negative 4 is your vertical shift, meaning you're going to go down 4 points on your y-axis, and you're going to have negative 4 be your starting point. What I like to do is draw a dull line so that you know that this is your starting line, and it's going to help you when you're actually plotting the points. So when you're starting at negative 4, now you have to consider the fact that your amplitude is 2 above negative 4 and 2 below negative 4. Now that we have the boundaries for the graph, we can start drawing. What you want to do is look at the frequency, because the frequency is 2, meaning that you're going to have 2 graphs in the given equation. So what you want to do is you want to draw a little line from pi down so that you know where the borders for your equation should be. And now you just repeat and connect with a dotted line, because this is not the equation that we're looking at. This is just the equation of 2 cosine 2x minus 4. We now want to graph the equation with the vertical shift. Where we're going is negative pi over 2, which means we should go pi over 2 to the left.
Warning, warning, a negative phase shift is to the right, not to the left.
You're right, my bad, Lisa. A negative phase shift is to the right. So what we're going to do is we're going to put each point over pi over 2 and just regraph it. After we've done this to every point, we're just going to connect the dots, and we have our equation. Make sure that when you're finishing graphing and you connect the points, that you extend the graph fully and not just to the nearest point. You have to make sure that it fits the orientation of the graph. Congratulations! You have just graphed the graph of 2 cosine 2x minus pi minus 4.
This is the graph for y equals tan x. The tangent of 0 is 0, the tangent of pi is 0, and the tangent of 2 pi is 0. And the asymptote is at pi.
Warning! Warning! The graph of tan x does not have an asymptote at pi.
Right. The actual asymptotes are at x equals pi over 2 and x equals 3 pi over 2 because the tangent for these two values is undefined. And just remember when you're drawing your tan graphs that the down arrow is always towards the y-axis.
Gee, I wonder what this graph could be. I know it's cosine because it's starting at a number on the y-axis and not at 0. And I also know the amplitude is 2. But wouldn't that mean that the equation would have to be 2 cosine x?
No, silly Gabby, you forgot about the frequency. So in this case, the frequency is 4 because there's 4 pictures in a period of 2 pi. So the equation is y equals 2 cosine 4x.
Hope you enjoyed our lesson on how to graph sine,
Cosine
and tangent.